Hey everybody. So going to change gears. We've been dealing with Peter, but today our word from the word is simply this word: awesome. Awesome. Now, I mean, most of you probably watch this on a Monday, and so what a blessing that is just to hear awesome on Monday morning. I know that's your thoughts early on a Monday morning, but we're going to be in Ezekiel for a little while. I don't know how long. We'll see where the Lord takes us, but it's some things that I want us to just kind of go through the book of Ezekiel and look at. And we're not going to have time to read, if we're going to deal with the whole chapter like today, we're not going to have time to really look into all that for the purpose of these videos. So I do encourage you on your own to be reading, following along with us in the book of Ezekiel. And I'm going to read part of the passage, but after I kind of give you an introduction to what's going on. So let's jump right in. Ezekiel here at about the age of 30, and this is give you a time frame and kind of situation what's going on. This is about 593 BC. 593 BC. At the age of 30, Ezekiel, who was a priest, but he's also now becoming a prophet. This is when God is calling him. And chapter 1 is where we see this divine vision that God gives him. And Ezekiel has some strange visions and some strange things that go on. And we'll talk about those things. But here, all right, to give you a little context, the Jews have been exiled. They're in Babylon. They're under the rule of King Nebuchadnezzar. And many of you know that name from the book of Daniel. And so he is ministering to all the exiles. So one of the things that I want you to remember, and we're going to come back to this at the end of our talk today, that the people there, the exiles, believed that since they had been exiled from the promised land, that they had been exiled from God's land, that they had also kind of been exiled from God. And as they'd been cut off from the land, that they were cut off from God. Now, you and I know today that as believers, that sin gets in the way. And it does get in the way of our relationship with God. And it clogs up those channels, as I usually say. But the thing is that if we're born again believers, we're never cut off from God. And what a blessing that is. And I'll just say that right up front. I mean, that's not kind of giving away the punchline or anything, but just the fact that we're never cut off from God. That is awesome in itself. But to give you an idea here, and like I said, I encourage you to read this, but what happens here in Ezekiel chapter 1 is he sees this vision. Ezekiel sees this vision, and basically, if you really read it down to the details, you find out that Ezekiel is running out of descriptive words to describe this vision. Much like John in the book of Revelation, as he's trying his best to put it in words, trying his best to explain it. I usually think about if you were in that time frame trying to explain some of the stuff that we use today. I mean, even a computer or a cell phone or a car or airplane, some of these things would be really hard to explain. So as he's trying to describe this vision he sees of basically what a lot of commentators have called God's chariot. And he basically sees a couple different things. He sees a group of cherubim, and we see them a lot. Isaiah, the ones he saw, had 6 wings. It's 4 different creatures, 4 different faces on each one of them. They had the face of a man, the face of a bull, the face of an ox, and the face of an eagle on each one. And then their wings the wingtips were touching each other. They were kind of making this platform where they were standing at each corner with their wings spread out, with their wingtips touching. It just really an amazing sight. And then along with that, they have these intersecting wheels. If you could almost imagine like wheels sitting like this within each other, is kind of the picture that it gives. And it's all this just fantastic stuff. I'm even having a hard time describing it to give you an idea of what it looks like. But he even says that the spirit is within the wheels. And what he was saying is that, man, they all move just like effortlessly. And the whole point is that the Spirit of God was moving all this together. And that in itself that's a kind of a sermon in itself, that, man, all these things that were created, God's throne, it moved like lightning flashes. And to think about it, it moved that quickly. Each one of the faces was turned in a way so that when they changed directions, they didn't have to turn, they just went. And you think about that. I mean, if it was four of us today and we could go any which way we wanted to, we'd be going all over the place. And man, that whole chariot would be going everywhere. But because it was driven by God, and each one of these creatures was doing the will of God, they moved effortlessly together. And that in itself, like I said, is a sermon in itself. But then above that, it's kind of like they're holding up, these cherubim are holding up this kind of clear, almost ice-like structure that you can see, but then you see fire in it. And like I said, there again, it's just this wonderful picture that I encourage you to read it. Then he even gives us the picture of the rainbow around this kind of firmament above everything that's going on. And it's amazing. One commentator had pointed out that, man, Noah got the rainbow at the end of the storm. John gets it at the beginning, before the storm comes. He sees the vision of a rainbow. But here, Ezekiel, as all this begins, this all starts with a thunderous cloud coming in. And to picture that he got the rainbow in the midst of the storm, showing that God was still in control, that he was still the covenant God, that he was still the one who was going to who proclaimed his promises, and he was going to fulfill his promises, that none of that had changed. And the way that they're moving effortlessly, it gave them such relief to know that he could move effortlessly. This would have given them that hope, as I mentioned a little while ago, that that they thought they'd been cut off from God, but to be able to see that he could move so easily would have given them great hope. And it would have given Ezekiel great hope in accepting this mission that God had given him. But I'm going to read there at the end of chapter 1, and this is talking about the firmament and the throne of God. It says in verse 26, it says, "And above the firmament over their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. On the likeness of the throne was a likeness with the appearance of a man high above it. Also from the appearance of his waist and upward I saw, as it were, the color of amber, with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire with brightness all around. Like the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the brightness all around. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord." And to that glory of the Lord is something that Ezekiel stays with that topic throughout the book. But now, could you imagine that all together here we see the picture of the omnipresence of God, the fact that he could move with ease anywhere he wanted to go. The omniscience of God, that there were eyes in all the wheels, so that there was all kind of that all-knowing and all-seeing everything that was going on. And there's the omnipotence, the great strength, the all-powerful God. See, Ezekiel sees all this. And what is his response? The rest of verse 28 says this: "So when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard a voice of one speaking." And that leads right into chapter 2, but as to what the Lord said. But that he fell on his face. Now think about Isaiah. Man, he sees him. He falls on his face. John, he's ready to worship the angel bringing the message. He says, no, you got this wrong. That's not me. And so many in Scripture that fall in fear before angels. But when they see God, they know that, man, they have to fall on their face before God. And you and I today, and I know you're probably thinking, okay, well, wait a minute. He said, how's this going to apply to me? I'm not seeing visions of some throne flying out of heaven. No, but here's what I want you to know. This is the beginning of Ezekiel's ministry. And for you and I, too, we've had moments where we've experienced God. And this was an experience with God like he'd never had before. And you and I, there's been moments where we've experienced God like none other. If you're watching today and you haven't experienced God, I pray you reach out to me. Man, I would love to talk with you and encourage you to where you can know and experience God. But see, when we as believers, when we've experienced Him and we know His power, right? We know that He's all knowing, and we know that He can be present at all places at all times, and we know He's all powerful. What do? We have no choice but to fall on our faces before God because He is awesome. And see, part of that I said, that can you imagine them being exiled and being cut off from God? And maybe today, maybe you feel like you're cut off from God. Maybe today you feel like there's a separation there. You feel like, man, I've messed up too much. There's no way that God could still love me. And maybe if you're watching and you're not a born again believer, you think, well, man, I've done so much, God would never love me. Well, let me tell you, there's no place you can go to escape God's love. There's nothing you can do to outrun His grace or His mercy. Why? Because God is awesome. He is awesome. And even as hard as it is to try to describe, as Ezekiel was, this picture of this chariot, like throne, carrying this, all this, just even trying to imagine it is mind-blowing. But it's because we serve an awesome God. He cannot be described. There are no descriptive words in our language to describe. That's why I love the part in Isaiah 6 where, man, they just cry out, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. Because what else can we say? There's nothing else I can say about Him, just to say that He is awesome. But I want to leave you with this thought. If you believe that and you understand that God is an awesome God, and just to imagine this image that we have in Ezekiel 1 today, I just want to ask you this simple question. What is it that you can face today that God can't handle? We serve an awesome God. What is it that you're going to face today that God can't handle? And I give you a hint. The answer is absolutely nothing. There's nothing that you're going to face today or tomorrow, in the coming days, coming weeks, months, years, that God can't contain, that God can't control, that God can't wipe away, that God can't walk you through. There's nothing that He can't do, because He's an awesome God. God bless you. Pray you have a great day.